In 1897, a notorious document containing a purported plan to blow up the capitals of Western nations should Jewry fail in its messianic quest to take over the world appeared in Paris. Russian mystic Sergei Nilus republished this alleged plan in 1905. It stated in the relevant part, "You may say that there will be an armed rising against us if our plans are discovered prematurely. But in anticipation of this, we have such a terrorizing maneuver in the West that even the bravest soul will shudder. Underground passages will be established by that time in all capitals, from where they can be exploded, together with all their institutions and national documents." In his book, The Samson Option, investigative journalist Seymour Hersh confirmed in 1991 that the Israeli Jews do indeed have just such a plan to blow up the capitals of the West with nuclear weapons and destroy humanity should the Messianic Jewish state fail. The underground tunnels under Western capitals have indeed been built, but have also been superseded in the Israelis' plans to destroy the world by submarines, jet planes, and missiles. Israeli military historian and theorist Martin Levi van Creveld wrote in 2003, in nearly identical terms to those recorded in Paris in 1897, just 1 year after Zionist Theodor Herzl published his seminal treatise, The Jewish State, in 1896, and then republished in 1905. "We possess several hundred atomic warheads and rockets and can launch them at targets in all directions, perhaps even at Rome. Most European capitals are targets for our Air Force. We have the capability to take the world down with us, and I can assure you that that will happen before Israel goes under." David Hurst quoted Van Creveld in Hurst's book, The Gun and the Olive Branch, The Roots of Violence in the Middle East, in the 3rd edition. "Israel will remain at least as likely a candidate as Iran, and a far more enduring one, for the role of nuclear crazy state. Iran can never be threatened in its very existence. Israel can. Indeed, despite its enormous military superiority over the Palestinians and any combination of Arab states, such a threat could even grow out of the current intifada. That, at least, is the pessimistic opinion of Martin van Creveld, the well-known professor of military history at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. If it went on much longer, he said, the Israeli government would lose control of the people. In campaigns like this, the anti-terror forces lose because they don't win, and the rebels win by not losing. I regard a total Israeli defeat as unavoidable. That will mean the collapse of the Israeli state and society. We'll destroy ourselves. And in this situation," he went on, "more and more Israelis were coming to regard the transfer of the Palestinians as the only salvation. Resort to it was therefore growing more probable with each passing day. Sharon wants to escalate the conflict and knows that nothing else will succeed. But would the world permit such ethnic cleansing? That depends on who does it and how quickly it happens. We possess several hundred atomic warheads and rockets and can launch them at targets in all directions, perhaps even at Rome. Most European capitals are targets for our Air Force. Let me quote General Moshe Dayan, "Israel must be like a mad dog, too dangerous to bother. I consider it all hopeless at this point. We shall have to try to prevent things from coming to that, if at all possible. Our armed forces, however, are not the 30th strongest in the world, but rather the 2nd or 3rd. We have the capability to take the world down with us. And I can assure you that that will happen before Israel goes under." In its 1st edition, The Gun and the Olive Branch concluded with a quotation from the Jerusalem Post warning of the Second Holocaust that might one day encompass Israel's enemies as well as itself. In 2002, David Perlmutter expressed his views that Israel has been building nuclear weapons for 30 years. The Jews understand what passive and powerless acceptance of doom has meant for them in the past, and they have ensured against it. Masada was not an example to follow. It hurt the Romans not a whit, but Samson in Gaza, with an H-bomb? What would serve the Jew-hating world better in repayment for thousands of years of massacres but a nuclear winter? Or invite all those tut-tutting European statesmen and peace activists to join us in the ovens? Apparently unaware that the Samson option dates back at least as far as 1897, therefore many decades before the Holocaust commenced, Ron Rosenbaum wrote in 2011 in his book, How the End Begins, the road to a nuclear World War III. And then there is another route from regional to global nuclear conflagration, the Samson option, a term first popularized in a 1991 Seymour Hersh book by that name. That's the scenario under which, in the aftermath of a second Holocaust, Israel's surviving submarines, reportedly 5 German-made Dolphin-class submarines, would use their nuclear-armed missiles to do more than retaliate against Israel's specific attackers, but would use their nuclear missiles to bring down the pillars of the world, attack Moscow and European capitals, for instance, on the grounds that their enabling, or toleration of, eliminationist anti-Semitism made both the first and second Holocaust possible. Indiscriminate vengeance that might even extend to the holy places of Islam, a nightmarish scenario feverishly discussed on the internet for some time, in retaliation for the hatred that brought about a second Holocaust. Have the Israelis already let the Iranians know that they would be responsible for the targeting of Islam's holiest sites if they struck Israel? Is that the deterrent that dare not speak its name? 25 years later, Benjamin Netanyahu, despite belonging to a different generation, used a stark historical analogy to describe the Iranian threat to Israel. It is 1938, and Iran is Germany, and Iran is racing to arm itself with atomic bombs. Even Shimon Peres, long regarded as the preeminent dovish Israeli statesman and its prime minister from 1986 to 1988, said in May 2009, "History teaches us that overreaction is preferable to underreaction." He was virtually declaring that he prefers an Israeli preemptive first strike, even nuclear, even if it's an overreaction, to the wait and hope passivity of underreaction that enabled Hitler's Holocaust to reap so many victims. Would the overreaction have an element of displaced vengeance for Hitler's Holocaust? In other words, might there be an element of retaliation for the first Holocaust in an Israeli nuclear preemption, ostensibly to prevent a second? It is only speculation, impossible to read the minds of those who will give the orders. But it wouldn't surprise me. The contemporary Middle East is a Hitler dream come true. The Jews have been compelled by the Holocaust and history to, in effect, round themselves up, and may feel compelled by history to inflict an attack with genocidal consequences on others that could well precede a second one for them. Yes, it's an emotional factor, but as they say, feelings are facts. Hitler's Holocaust has shaped Israeli awareness of history, and the implications of the past failure to take Hitler's exterminationist rhetoric seriously will affect Israelis' current reaction, or overreaction, to the exterminationist rhetoric and the real threats that rain down on their sliver of land. The very secondness of the second Holocaust carries with it a temptation to abandon all thoughts of proportionality in retaliation, and to punish the whole world for allowing not one, but 2 slaughters of a people. Abandonment of proportionality is the essence of the so-called Samson option in all its variants. A Samson option is made possible by the fact that even if Israel has been obliterated, it can be sure that its Dolphin-class nuclear missile submarines cruising the Red Sea, the Indian Ocean, and the Persian Gulf at depths impervious to detection can carry out a genocidal scaled retaliation virtually anywhere in the world. It is probably unnecessary to recall the origin of the phrase. Samson's suicidal dying act in the Bible was to pull down the pillars of the Philistine temple around him and kill all those inside, including himself. The extreme version of the Samson option presupposes a rage on the part of post-Second Holocaust survivors in possession of nuclear weapons, determined to reduce the entire temple of civilization to ashes for having complacently allowed 2 Holocausts to be inflicted on one people. It is useful to remember that even if Israel strikes first for good reason or bad intelligence, there is no assurance that such action would guarantee prevention of an anticipated nuclear strike. The Washington-based Center for Strategic and International Studies' most recent study of a possible non-nuclear Israeli attack on Iranian nuclear facilities, a 100-page analysis of every plane, missile, weapon, every flight path potential, every estimate of wind-dependent radiation damage, does not give the reader confidence that any non-nuclear strike has more than a 50-50 chance of succeeding, which strongly suggests Nuclear strikes at the outset are the only guarantee of success. This is something that must be known to the Israelis, but which they may be compelled to gamble their existence on. Think of it this way. Hitler's Holocaust, the first, increases the likelihood of a second Holocaust by causing the concentration of survivors and refugees in Israel, thus making a 1 or 2 bomb attack genocidal. And Israel, seeking to prevent a second Holocaust, launches a preemptive nuclear strike whose consequences for both sides is genocidal. And the victim of a second Holocaust is likely to have the weapons or the allies to inflict a third on the party that struck first, and they, for all we know, could unleash a fourth against the party that struck them until it all goes global and there's no one left to kill. At a certain point, what we will have is a chain reaction of lowercase holocausts, perhaps enough to escalate to the global level, certain to put a smile on Hitler's face in hell. Hitler's nuclear chain reaction. The Samson option is meant to trigger the mutually assured destruction system of Russia and America and a worldwide nuclear conflagration by causing Russia and America to launch all of their nuclear missiles at one another and others. The Jews Lisa Meitner, Leo Szilard, J. Robert Oppenheimer and his team working together on the Manhattan Project created atomic bombs. The Jew Edward Teller invented the thermonuclear hydrogen bomb and gave the technology to Israel. Jewish spies, including Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, betrayed America and gave American atomic and nuclear bomb secrets to the Soviet Union, which established the system of mutually assured destruction, which the Samson option is designed to provoke in order to wipe out humanity and kill us all off completely. The plan to do this much predates the Holocaust and instead served as justification for it in the minds of the Nazis. The Israelis are unnecessarily and aggressively themselves producing all the conditions they established for ending humanity as we know it in this way. They must be stopped.